Thanks, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the State Allocation Board to order. If you could take the roll.
Certainly. Senator Hancock, Senator Weiland, Senator Liu, Assemblymember Buchanan, Assemblymember Hagman, Assemblymember Nazarian, Esteban Almanza,
Here.
Kathleen Moore, Cesar Diaz,
Here.
Irina Ortega.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the minutes for the October 14th meeting. Okay. Do we have 3 sets here? Okay, sounds good. And any public comment on the minutes? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 3 is the executive officer statement.
Yes, we have several items to report tonight since we had a little break for a while. We wanted to report back to the board. We did provide a number of school districts some apportionments in July, and so we awarded nearly $42 million, and 17 projects were received, had the ability to come to receive some funds, but 2 projects actually didn't make the timeline, so those projects will actually were rescinded and placed on the bottom of the current unfunded list. Since the current regulations did not impact them, they had the ability to go back on the bottom of the list. We also wanted to share in August there was also some cash that were awarded as well, and some residual cash, nearly $20 million, and those folks have until tomorrow to come in with the proper certifications for the fund release, and again those documents need to be in our house by 5 p.m. tomorrow. In October, we did award nearly $300 million for 112 projects. Again, to remind those folks that we have until January 13th, so we won't have another board until after that date, and just remind them that they need to come in with the proper certifications as well. So far we have 69 fund releases, nearly $124 million we have released to date. So again, money is moving out, and so we've been getting the proper certifications from school districts, but again, just to notify those folks that need to come in and execute that before the middle of January. We do have a current filing round, so if you have, for the certification process, again, the goal is if you have a project that's been awarded an unfunded approval and you are sitting on that unfunded list waiting for cash, you have the ability to submit a certification within 30 days. That round just opened up November 13th and it closes December 12th. And again, the goal is to reach out to everybody on the unfunded list to make them aware of the certification process, and the certifications will close December 12th, and that will be active from January 1st to the end of June. So again, just to be aware of the certification process opening round right now. And just to remind you, for folks that have a priority funding process, the ability, you must participate in this process. The regulations have been put in effect, and if you have not submitted once, that list was identified at the last closing of that round in June. And again, a reminder that if you already have one strike and you haven't submitted during that time frame, you have the ability to submit during the current time frame, and again, must do so. So again, the goal is to get as many certifications as we possibly can during that time frame. And for those folks who didn't get awarded funds because we didn't have enough funds to get down to the bottom of the list, then those folks, the strike wouldn't have counted against them. So again, if you're on the unfunded list, you must compete with the certification process. Another update we wanted to share is we did go out to the Pasadena Green School Summit, and we did provide some updates to some of the local districts out there who were at the conference to share with them the ability to participate in the High Performance Incentive Program, and also cover the charter program and the current program, seismic mitigation program, and the ability to compete effective January 1st. Again, those program funds are available. 2 more updates. Regulations have been placed in effect. The High Performance Incentive Grant, the board did grant the approval of extending that program to the facility hardship and seismic program, and so if you have those projects and you're ready to come in the door, January 1st is the effective date in which you can apply for a High Performance Incentive Grant as part of those programs, project programs. General Site Development Grant has been extended. That will be in effect January 1st, 2014. And again, the board's been granting one-year extensions in this area. So they would have sunsetted January 1st, but again, we put the extension early on in place so we could get that grandfathered in timely. We have several projects on the seismic mitigation program that are part of the consent agenda, so we wanted to keep sharing with the board the progress we're making in that area. So 4 projects have been approved for will be approved for nearly $4 million. And again, we also have tucked in there some 2 conceptual approvals in which they have a preliminary thumbs up or approval that they will meet some part of the program certification, the requirements, and then they have the ability to go back and work with their community and district and seek out some additional plan approvals so they can establish what type of project they're going to be moving forward in the seismic mitigation program. The last item is to share is we have a program review subcommittee, and it will tuck in after this meeting, and if necessary, we'll have a meeting in January, but we're still working on that date. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions from members? No? Let's see. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. Do we have any questions from the members? No? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments from the public on the consent agenda? No? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. Let's see. Item number 5, the status of fund releases.
Yeah, grab your attention on page 146. This is information that we've been sharing on a monthly basis of the disbursements of funds, and we just took a snapshot through October 31st. So through October 31st, we had released nearly $32 million, and again, I did report that we had released close to $160 million in the recent priority funding rounds. So. Again, we've been active in releasing the cash in our program area. So I'm not sure if there's any questions as far as how much funds have been released. We can move on to the status of funds.
Any questions from the members? No? Okay.
So on the status of funds, which is on your following tab, and again, what's been significant this month is we wanted to share is actually awarding nearly $102 million in unfunded approvals as a result of your consent agenda. And so several of those projects were actually projects that we moved over from what we call the true unfunded list. So nearly $50 million of those projects have been moved over to where they received bond authority. And so as we've been getting rescissions and as we've been moving forward, again, the goal is to continue to move those projects from that true unfunded list because we had accumulated nearly $500 million. So we've been taking projects pretty progressively as we had bond authority freed up. So again, nearly $50 million have been awarded. So again, there could be some additional projects that don't move forward as a result of the new priority round, and so if those funds become available come January, those projects will lose their award, and then we'll be able to move additional projects off that list. So just in a snapshot, we have $102 million and 43 projects that were processed as part of the consent agenda. And that's it.
Any questions? Okay. The next item is the options for dispersing remaining charter school facility program funds.
Good afternoon, Michael Watanabe, Chief of Program Services for OPSC. I am on tab 7, stamp page 169. So the purpose of this item is to request the board establish a new charter school facility program filing round to disperse the residual bond authority in the program. Through the passage of Propositions 4755 and 1D, $900 million has been approved by voters for the charter school program. And through project rescissions and projects not accessing their full preliminary apportionments, bond authority has returned to the program. What we've shown on page 170, with the consent portion of this agenda, the board approved 5 conversions at this afternoon's board. We do have one project that will be coming to a future board for rescission, but what we expect after that happens is that approximately $96.4 million will be available for a new charter school round. In this item, staff is proposing a new filing round that is open beginning April 1st, 2014, closing on May 30th, 2014. That those dates have been coordinated with CDE and the California School Finance Authority to allow time for their reviews. It'll also allow us time to do outreach workshops, webinars for the charter school communities with those organizations as well. On page 171, we've kind of outlined how the timeline would work for processing those applications. We'd be working in parallel with CSFA for those reviews of those applications and determining financial soundness, ranking applications with a estimated approval around December 2014. With this filing period, staff is also proposing that we hold those applications for 8 months after the board makes preliminary apportionments. That'll allow us to maintain that list in preference point order so that we can continue to fund projects down that list rather than create a new filing round. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay. I just had a quick clarifying question. So the staff is recommending that we have approve the filing round here, but we would come back at a later date to have a discussion about the exact dollar amount, correct?
We could do that too.
Okay. Any questions?
So then does we received a letter from Ocean Charter School that had some funding issues. We can talk about that when the funding comes forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Motion? Oh, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the recommendations as listed is to use any remaining authority at this time, so you'd be approving a modified motion to discuss funding at a future round or future meeting.
Okay, so we need a specific motion from whoever chooses to make the motion.
To move that the staff prepare a funding round for April 1st with whatever authority is left at that time to go out for charter schools.
For an amount to be determined at a future meeting.
Future meeting. All right, we'll look at that. Actual language.
That's the recommendation, right? We approve the new application filing period between April 1 and 30th.
Well, that's kind of what I just said. But
Let me clarify, because I want to make sure that anyone who's paying attention, we don't want to specify
we don't know the amount
We don't
yet.
know the amount right now because there are other outstanding requests out there that might affect
But
the
we're-
total. So we just want to have a filing round approved today and not.
yeah, but we're using the remaining Prop 4755 and 1D bond authority available at that date.
As determined at a
as
later date,
determined at the
correct.
later date.
Do we have a second? Second. Do we need a roll call for that, or? Yeah, please. Thanks.
Assemblymember Buchanan,
Aye.
Assemblymember Hagman,
Aye.
Esteban Almanza,
Aye.
Kathleen Moore,
Aye.
Cesar Diaz,
Aye.
Irena Ortega.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And do we need a second motion on the issue of the 8 months?
That could be part of the discussion
Just
that we bring
later?
back.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, you know what? I didn't ask if there was any public comment on that previous item, so let me make that offer now. No? Okay, thanks. Let's see, item number 8 is a legislative update.
This is the informational section of the agenda. We included this year's annual legislative update, which is basically a summary of the bills that have been recently chaptered. We also included very preliminary comments on whether we think that the board may need to take further action. Again, it's informational. It's available for the board's review. And then we also have our standard items in terms of the 90-day calendar, the appeals workload, and the other workloads in the informational section. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a bill that got chaptered in this year, 8308, and it got changed a little bit through the process, like many bills do here in the legislative cycle. And I think I would love for the chair to maybe have the staff come back with a report what tweaks may have. I had a couple of school districts come up and tell me they're concerned it may conflict with the Naylor Act, and the legislative intent was if we're going to spend state dollars on an asset, and that asset gets sold within a decade or 10 years, that the state should receive its portion back. Originally, it was to receive its percentage back, but it's at least its portion back. I want to make sure that maybe a staff has more technical look at it. If there are changes, maybe we could do that as regulations. And that way, if we could do that, I won't need to do cleanup legislation if it needs to be done at all.
Okay.
Maybe at the same time, you could have your staff send a letter to the Ledge Council asking them to clarify any of those questions, so we know which takes, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the legislative council information would be helpful, and then we can ask the staff to bring back a recommendation on what a program consistent with the bill that's been chaptered would look like.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Regarding SB 584 Wyland, deals with in consultation with the SAB to develop the sort of the guidelines. How do you envision that kind of form? And it says that you're looking at possible program impact, but is there other things that the board may vote on, or?
We don't know. That's going to be largely dependent on the controller. The controller's office is the one that's going to be working in consultation with the SAB along with the other agencies. We don't expect there to be an impact to the programs, but again, it's going to be up to the controller to determine the extent of the SAB involvement.
Okay. The controller will get to dictate, sort of give us the guidelines. We're sort of like a rubber stamped approval.
What information they may need for them to be able to provide their recommendations to the Education Audit Appeals Panel.
Maybe I can add to that a little bit. School districts, if you're doing a normal financial audit, you have to, there are guidelines for what has to be part of that financial audit, and they have to have an auditor who's been approved to do school audit, who's approved by the controller to do school audits. So you know you have someone who's competent performing the audit, and you also know what the contents of that audit is. So when you get into Prop 39, there are two requirements. One is a financial audit of your Prop 39 funds, which for most districts are probably already doing that as part of their normal school district audits. So and so there have been guidelines for financial audits, but not specific guidelines to your Prop 39 program. And then the second requirement is that districts do a performance audit. And there's never been an audit manual or definition of what a performance audit is. So Prop 39 has been around for over a decade now, and what happened when it first came out for bond oversight committees, and they knew they had to do this, was some of your major auditing firms, school audit firms, got together to sort of define what a performance audit is. And for the most part, you know, when I was involved in our Prop 39 committee, they were really saying, have the funds been spent on the objects of the bond, okay? But there's been no definition. So the way I see the Wyland bill, you know, as it came through our committee, is that they're asking for the first time the controller convene a group, of which the State Allocations Board, or OPC, will be part of that, to actually define what a performance audit is. So it will be consistent across all districts in the state, and it will give clear guidelines to the auditors in terms of what the content of the performance audit report has to include. So I'm not, you know, we'll find out to what extent it creates more work or less work, but we will have that consistency throughout the state.
Okay, thank you. That actually is good for me as well to have more input into that process. And I also just have another follow-up question. AB 1565, the pre-qualification bill, was there any type of regulation or anything developed by OPSC on that?
There hasn't been
Okay.
at this point.
Does there exist a need to do that with DIR? I know DIR has been having conversations with OPSC.
I think our preliminary review was that we didn't have to. There are certain certifications that districts have to make as part of submitting a funding application that covers all applicable laws for school construction, which would now also include the new requirements for that bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the legislative report? Let's see, the next issue is the 3-month workload.
Any questions on 3-month workload? And one other item I wanted to point out, we do have the appeals log. There was a couple appeals that were requested to be held over, and so those items will be brought back in January.
Okay.
And we also wanted to introduce the number of topics or meetings that we had at the Program Review Subcommittee. We also did launch a website to summarize all those meetings as well. And another item, just the last note, is this is the last meeting of the year, and so we are also introducing the calendar dates for January 2014, and so we will consistently hold out for those monthly dates, but it would obviously depend on whether or not we have the workload needs through the chair and the vice chair on whether or not we actually have those affirmative dates in play.
Okay.
So any questions?
Any questions? No? Okay. I think that's it, right? Any general comments from the public? Anything else to come before the committee? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.